All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Liquid Weekly podcast. I'm your host. That's right. I'm your
I'm
host,
just having
Karl
Kurt on
Meister.
for the soundboard.
We're too cheap to have a real soundboard. But we got Taylor, which is pretty much the same thing. Speaking of which, my amazing co-host, Taylor. Taylor, hello.
What's up, Karl?
It feels like it's been a year since I've seen you.
I was trying to get that in. I didn't know if I was allowed to since you hopped in and said it early before we started recording. I was like, oh, wait, should I steal his thunder? But you got it.
from
You
you
made
again.
it in. You knew it.
Yeah. I'm the stealer of Taylor's jokes here at the Liquid Weekly podcast center. Today's a very exciting episode, Taylor. Not only has it been a long time since we've seen each other, but we also don't have a guest today. It's just the two of us, as it used to be in the old days before we found out people actually would come on our show. So we get to talk about some cool things happening in our own lives and in the Shoposphere.
Yeah, that's kind of exciting. We hadn't got to do this for quite some time, and we do have quite a few people that have still asked to come on that we're excited to bring on. But I think it's nice just to hang out every now and again, just the two of us here, and chat about work on Shopify. So
Before our families got in the way.
Right, like
It used to be just us, Taylor.
No, it's. I had to send. So it is Christmas break, right? Like at the time of this recording here, where we're scheduled, and we've just had this happen, and so I do have quite a rambunctious group of kids here that they've been sent upstairs to watch a movie. So I'm hoping that's.
Oh man, how long is the movie? What's our time limit here? We got like 15 minutes.
We're on the clock, so like we gotta crank this out. But I know like we wanted to chat a little bit about stuff that we have been actively working on here, and so I was trying to just kind of pick around with a couple of different things because had such a bad rush for getting stuff out the door and finished and buttoned up. So just like probably a couple of things that I was like most excited about to work on with a couple of the shops that I was working on that I really liked was one of them was, and I think you're going to talk about this a little bit too, and we're going to have a guest on in the future as well, but doing some bundles. There was a shop that, I'd worked with and we ended up using Foxcell to do some really custom stuff. We have we have like 5 different versions of bundlers. So we have like these kind of like native bundlers that don't really do any discounting. It just adds a bunch of stuff to the cart at the same time. But they use it for like building out like custom jewelry kind of pieces and those sorts of things. So think like, if someone has a necklace and they want to add like a custom disc that has like a letter or a symbol and stuff like this or whatever, and then adding these all to the cart at the same time. So we've got these different versions of native bundlers, and then just like one that they like, hey, this product pairs really well with this one, so like go ahead and add them both to the cart at the same time.
Nice.
And so building in controls, like that's kind of evolved, which is nice. I just moved over from this old bundler. I actually had another dev help me build it because it was at the time I was just like, and I can't even like figure out the best way forward for this. So building in all these controls that into the theme where the customer can like select what products they want for these specific items, right? And so at the time we were creating like extra templates to like host all these different settings. And so we have like, 12 different custom product templates now for these. And then over time, like meta fields, meta objects have evolved enough that I'm like, I can finally just start using these.
Yes.
And so I've spent the time migrating a lot of these over so that way we don't have to create a brand new template every single time. And so a lot of it has followed this same pattern. And I think we might have talked about this with like custom data and stuff. My current pattern or preference for a lot of these is to build out kind of a product configuration meta object that I then tie to a meta field. Like I connect that meta object via a meta field to a product. And so now the dynamic data is completely accessible. Like anytime you're trying to like connect stuff or whatever, right, within there, like you go to like, like in the settings, like connect dynamic data. And then as long as we have a valid target for that, it's really easy to assign stuff. And so that has been kind of my go-to as of late. And so there's still a lot of like migrating stuff over to this now.
So just make sure I understand, you can set a meta object as a value of a meta field.
Yeah. So like, like if you create a product meta field, you can have it set as a type of meta object. Right.
Makes sense.
Whether a list or just like a single. So usually in this instance, obviously I'm doing a single because I don't want like to have to like loop through a list. Like I just want everything to live directly there. And so that's been nice. So anyways, so migrating a bunch of these native bundlers, but then, anytime you want to do something with discounts, things start to get really hinky if you want to try to do all that client side, right? But for good reason.
You say hinky?
Hinky. Yeah. Like that's a
That's
word,
not
right?
a thing. No.
Stop it.
No,
Stop it.
it's not a thing. I'm telling you.
I'm Googling it right now. Hinky is of a person dishonest or suspect, or of an object unreliable.
Whoa.
Bam. You learned something new today, folks. We'll have it in the show notes as well as scoreboard Taylor 1, Karl 0 for 2025. If you're paying attention, yes. I am.
I think you should be proud that it's a word, but I think you also need to recognize no one uses it. But okay. Perfectly cromulent expression.
So discounts, client side, unreliable. Used to be able to do stuff with like the discount code cookie in Shopify, right? But like for good reason, like, that's just not reliable. So really need an app if you want to do like custom pricing. And so a couple of really good apps that are around for that are Biscuits customizable bundlers. Anthony, I'm really sorry. I feel like you've changed the name of this, or I'm just not recalling it correctly, but like that's a really good app for that. But we ended up going with Foxcell. And so Prakar, he's really awesome. He's an SDA. We've talked about this. We're going to have him on in the show here in the future as well. But just really, really great documentation, obviously support. He knocks that out of the park as well, but like can just like kind of create whatever custom views you want to like surface these items. And then you just have to add them to the cart however you want to, or whatever, with some custom properties and stuff like this to like kind of create these. And so was able to like get that done, was really, really happy to have that, like this really, really customizable bundle kind of type thing done. And then just before BFCM had this big pivoting away from that, had this big site redesign launched, which was really cool. Also using a lot of meta objects for that, because we wanted a lot of custom content between different images than we have hosted on the product.
Now, when you say
itself.
Is this a project you worked on by yourself with your client, or were there other developers involved? Like, what was your part in this redesign?
Client and I. So they have their own designer. I don't design. Like I just do the dev part of things. And so the designer kind of had, so that's when I say we, it's like me and them. My wife does work with me in some projects now, but not at least in these to that degree. But like, yeah, in this instance, they had a bunch of designs and they wanted like these completely custom images and everything, and then colors and then flavors all associated with these. It's tea. And, but there's not really a good way to do that unless you start looking at custom data. And so, again, that same kind of concept of connecting with like a product configuration meta object, and then everything gets surfaced in the theme, and is able to be connected there. That's really nice to be able to do. That was another really, really big piece to that as well. And then, yeah, the only other thing I'd say that I was probably working on.
Before you switch gears there, have you ever heard of synesthesia?
No.
I might not be pronouncing it correctly.
So.
It's a real word. So you said you're working on flavors and colors. So for some people, they have this neurological condition where it causes two or more senses to activate. So they might taste colors, for example, or smell sounds, or see shapes. So I wondered perhaps if you were catering to that crowd with your flavors and colors profiles, but
no, that sounds pretty trippy. Like if people are, I'd
be curious if you're listening to this
and
that's you. If you have an experience you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to know more about what that's like.
That's interesting.
I only ever taste victory when I eat, so.
That's awesome. Yeah, so that was for that, with a lot of stuff with meta objects, site redesign. It took a long time, longer than I would have hoped. But it's a really interesting. I don't know if you run into this too, like kind of when you're initially trying to figure this out with like ongoing work with clients, where you have like a limited set number of hours, and you're like, okay, great, like I can do this. But then like obviously as you continue to delve into it more, they keep adding stuff like as it goes, and the project drags on longer. But then stuff keeps getting added because the project's dragged on. So
yes,
especially when you're on a set number of hours, it's really hard, to get ahead on that kind of type stuff. So took longer than I thought, but it happened like on their budget, like at least. So that was positive.
Oh, way to go!
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's a good thing.
No, I feel like as a freelancer, we recognize the danger of scope creep, and quite often we're in a position where we have to push back on the client to maintain that budget. But I feel like it's a professional badge of honor. Like if you can solution in the constraints that they give you and make it work for them without, killing yourself. Obviously, you don't want to do that. You have to push back
Right.
if it's an hour, but when you can pull it off, it's really cool. And I bet the client appreciates it too.
Yes. Yeah. That's always really nice. Like when the client's happy, and you can kind of continue to work with them too. This is one of the clients that I work with on a regular and ongoing basis. So that's always great to be able to see that. And then, like the other thing, I feel like as far as like stuff that I've been doing a lot of lately, I've been adding a lot of like these like quick shops like to shops. I don't know if you've seen like these quick add like kind of type things or whatever, where maybe it's not built into the theme, or maybe they have like a quick view where you can then see like a modal and then add a cart to the cart from like the collection page or something. And so I've been focusing a lot on lately trying to make sure I'm like showcasing some value, like not just building the thing, but also making sure that they can actually like track whether or not people are using the feature that I've built, right? Sure. And so I'm doing that with basically a combination of adding some cart line item properties to like, tag those items as they're added to the cart, and then a flow that tags those orders that we can then look at in an order view. That obviously doesn't give you like a line by line, but they can at least see like how frequently the feature is being used if we're tagging specific orders that way.
So you're just using it to generate analytics on the quick buy button, essentially.
Kind of very like low level analytics in the sense that like you can see it on individual orders, and then the flow will tag the orders so that way you can see all these orders together if you create like a view for those specific tags, but not in the sense that like, they can't get line by line, like here's the revenue that's been generated from this specific feature or whatever. I also we'll have to have someone on at some point about attribution. I don't know if you've dealt with this or whatever, but like I have like such an axe to grind with these, like you drop into some apps and they're like, hey, like we've generated X amount of revenue for you. And you're like, okay, this is not so unique that like they weren't going to spend this money on the shop anyways. Like you can't like claim 100% of that revenue, but people do. And I get the need for that. Like, again, you have to showcase the value. So yeah, I've got a whole soapbox. I won't drag it out for you.
So,
you don't need
listen,
to hear that.
If you do that and you're part of the developer community, we would still consider you friends, but just don't let Taylor know who you are, because he might get upset.
Do let me know who you are, and maybe we can bring you on here. So it's different with, there's some apps that like, they're only spending the money this way. So like these bundle apps we just talked about, right? They'll show you how much money's been generated from these bundles. That's legit, right? Because like you can't build these bundles out without this app to do this specific way. But when you've got like a collection page or whatever, just like, oh, we like sort it this way or whatever, who's to say that they wouldn't have spent that money anyways? Like, unless you have a legit A/B test to showcase for that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to dig too much into it, but I think it's fun. Like attribution's a hard thing to get. I get that, but it's funny when people try to grab all of it. That's have you seen that controversy with PayPal and Honey? That app or whatever that like there's this big whole ordeal going on about that right now in the tech world.
No, I've stayed somewhat ignorant of that. Do you want to?
I'll just real high level, like I guess the app is doing stuff where it basically steals attribution, and they're trying to like kind of claim everything from like the, like they're the ones that made the sale kind of type thing, right? But it's problematic in the sense that it also strips like attribution from things like content creators and affiliates and stuff like this, because like they're like, oh, like you used our discount code and it was better, but it like pulls off any other potential attribution. So real interesting, like as far as that goes. But yeah, I feel like that's the game most part. Like everybody tries to like say we're the ones that did this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a whole weird world.
Yes.
Referrals and attribution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What have you been working on?
Well, thanks for asking, Taylor, but thanks for sharing too what's been going on in your life. And just a little aside here, Prakar, you're working out now as you listen to this podcast, so make sure that you keep your heart rate elevated. This is a custom message for Prakar. Thank you. All right. Inside joke, perhaps.
I think most people listen to our podcast when they're working out or going on a walk or a long drive. You have to. It's an hour-long podcast. When else are you going to listen to it?
It's so boring.
Right?
Yeah, how could you not? Anyway, so I would say the last 2 weeks or so over break, I have been focused on working on some personal projects and side projects, and it has been a season of humbling, I guess I would say is the right word. I've been developing web apps now for nigh 20, 25 years, getting up there. And you feel like you've seen it all, can do it all, whatever. And I'm working on a new public-facing app, which is the first time I've done a public-facing app. To be honest, I've only ever really done private apps in the past. There's more that goes along with it. And also trying to get up to speed with some of the latest developments that have occurred since I last did one, because there's so much that has changed. And it's been a journey of self-reflection, and do I really know what I'm doing, and why is everyone better at programming than me, and that typical stuff that we all deal with, right? But it's been fun to see it come together. Trying to think of some specific highlights to sort of call some things out. One of the things that I'm doing that I'm really enjoying is I'm using Rails to develop it. Now, Harshdeep, I know you're also probably listening to this, and I was very tempted to use your templates because, man, when you showed them off, you were so quick and spinning stuff up with that. But that ecosystem's just not my native tongue, and I thought I would just butcher it, and I'd have to show him the code I wrote, and he would yell at me because it was so bad, and better off just sticking with what I know.
He's very forgiving and kind with stuff. So
that was before he won this award. I haven't talked to him since he won the award. How could that not make you have a bigger ego? I don't know. I'm sure if anyone, Harshdeep is probably still humble.
Yes.
So I went with Rails, and working with the admin front end, now we have players, which is not a new thing, but also Hotwire and Stimulus is technologies for Rails. So the first thing I had to do was kind of figure out, right, how do I communicate in the context of the Shopify app between the admin front end in Polaris, the Stimulus controllers in Rails, and then like the back end of Rails, and having to figure all that out again. I'm sure it's obvious to everyone else, but to me, it's kind of like, okay, how are all these pieces fitting together again? Because I kind of did the thing where you take a couple frameworks and you jump into them at that level. Like I was using Karl's template that he created that you can get by sponsoring him, and the Shopify App Gem. And so there's a lot of configuration and just decisions that have already been made for you. And so when you start at that level, it certainly can accelerate development, but you're also having to figure out, okay, how do these things actually fit together, and sort of unwind them enough so that you can make a mental model so you can move forward. So that was fun, kind of figuring that out, hitting your head against the wall. And
I was curious how, because like I was also playing around with his template just to like kind of get some like theme extensions working and play around with that as well, just because that's the nice thing about being a theme dev. Like once you get like a base app template, like theme extensions are just liquid, so like that's really nice and fun to play with. So but yeah, there's a lot of those pieces, and his template doesn't actually use Polaris, right? Like he has, it's the separate
view components. Yeah,
there's another view components, Polaris view components.
Yeah, Polaris view components. I think is the
gem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. Which
and
is just like
another
HTML
gem.
and CSS, right? Like for the most part, it's not like React, is it?
No, it's not React.
Okay.
I'm saying no without actually having a look at the source. So if I'm wrong, Karl, correct me, but no, I don't think so. He wouldn't do that to us. React? No, he's too nice.
No.
Yeah. So there's also another gem that he created as part of this too. It's a GraphQL gem. Can't remember the name off the top of my head. That makes it easier to interact with that. And that was another source of humbling because I'm like trying to figure this out. GraphQL, it's a beast, right? It's simple and yet it's complex. And so a couple of times I was trying to get this thing to work. Like, it's not working. And eventually, like, I'm going to file a PR or an issue for it. And then someone's like, what version are you using? And I checked. And I fell victim to the classic, like, I didn't have the latest version of the gem. And so the thing that I was reading about that should have been working, it wasn't because my code was wrong. It was because I just hadn't updated the gem. I didn't even think to check that. So always remember to check your dependencies, Taylor.
It's always like the basics things, right? Like you think it's like ends up being like something way more complicated. You're like, I've run this, and this down. And you're just like, okay, the most basic thing is the one thing I haven't checked because I assumed that was true. I do that all the time.
Another thing I've run into when working on this that I thought was interesting is, there's lots of articles and documentation and conversation around some of the specific technologies, like how do you use GraphQL or how do you use meta objects or meta fields or whatever. But I'm realizing, unless I've missed it all along, there aren't a lot of people that talk about some of the strategies for things like, well, what's the best way to create and serialize settings for your app? and to maintain state between what you show in the admin store and your app, and potentially caching things in meta fields or using those outright. Like there's just all these different things that are part of what an app needs to do and how it functions and internally that aren't discussed at a higher level, at least that I found, right? So as I was encountering those, like, oh, this is interesting, because I kind of have to noodle about it. Like you have to think, all right, if my app has 100 users, well, this is going to be fine. But what if it has, 1,000 users? Will this still work? I need to think, because no one has done the thinking for me about what would the implications be of some of those different choices. So that's been fun to think about. I like architecture.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anyone talk about that sort of stuff?
No, not like in depth. Like I definitely, I would agree with you from the sentiment. Like, and I didn't know if it was just because like I'm primarily a theme dev, trying to get in further into app dev. And I've seen a lot of this like high level, right? Like use meta fields and meta objects for everything, right? And there are instances where people talk about, being able to like store different values or states like within meta fields, like app owned meta fields and those sorts of things. But I don't feel like there is a lot of specifics on that, other than like just talking about it like more so as a pattern that you should work towards, but nothing like you're talking about as far as like an actual like an actual example of like what that looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you enjoy writing about that kind of stuff, I think there's a space and a need for that in the community. So some of you guys are very prolific app developers. Some of you have very large install bases. Like it'd be interesting to hear some of the decisions and design decisions you've had to make along the way, if you want to share that knowledge with the rest of us.
Do it.
Another aspect that's been interesting to me about this is deployment. So I'm using Rails 8, and it comes with a tool called Kaml. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kamal, which essentially is a simple tool where it Dockerizes your Rails app and dependencies. Then you have to register it with a Docker registry, or some of these other services have registries, and then it will be able to SSH into a plain virtual server box you have set up with. I think it works with a lot of different providers, and then pull that image down and get it all set up for you and spin it up. Now, I've just shared that really high level. I've not actually done it successfully yet, so I could have misspoken, but that's, as I understand it, to be the essence of what that command and that tool do. It's very simple in nature, because what I've been finding is that there are a lot of options for hosting things in production now. Back in my day, it was you could do the Linode route, which is, do it all yourself if you like DevOps, which I do. I don't mind it so much. Or you go the Heroku route, which is much simpler, will save you a lot of time, but comes with a price, right? And nowadays, we have a lot more platforms as services, Render, Fly, trying to think some of these other ones that I've seen.
I think is Fly like the one that's the newer, well, I mean, not new, but like newer in the sense that compared to like something like Heroku or whatever, that seems like a lot of like Rails devs or whatever like recommend or suggest. I don't know. I feel like I've seen that come up a lot.
I think someone mentioned to me, because I asked this question in a forum just to see what people were doing these days. Someone mentioned that even Shopify recommends Fly to some extent now, I think. So in some of their documentation. Yeah.
I feel like that's the case. If I would have seen it too, like that's probably what it is.
So I luckily, starting with the Greenfield app, not everybody has this option, but I can basically try it on all of the services and see which one I like best, right? And then I'm going to attempt to see, like, does it make more sense to abstract it back just to Kaml and just like a DO droplet somewhere, or a Linode server somewhere, or something like that. So the reason I say that is because, alluding back to that 25-year statement I made a little while ago, I've been around long enough to know that these services are pretty cool, but tides ebb and flow, right? And so do you want to get tied into something where it's pretty vendor specific in the way that it works and set up? Or do you want to stay pretty vanilla and just use tools that get the bare basics done? So
there's some of these that have been great for years, but then they get acquired and then they start to suck, or like, which I don't know. That's people still talk about like Heroku, and they were acquired by Salesforce like how many years ago?
Yeah.
And, they got rid of, I think the biggest controversy was they got rid of their free tier, right? That was around for forever. And they got rid of that, and it's like paid people only now. But I do, so that shopinfo.app, that I have, like, that's a Rails app, and it's on
your
Heroku.
app.
Yeah.
Give us a little plug. People that don't know, what is shopinfo.app?
That all it is it just checks against the database that I maintain of Shopify themes that are on the Shopify theme store, or at one point on the Shopify theme store. So I think that's the only benefit at this point, is that like it's not just active themes on the theme store, which is really helpful in the sense that like there are some themes that actually were around that have been like removed. So there's some that have been retired, some where the listing's just been completely removed, which is really interesting. I've actually like tried to get more information about like why or when this happens. Haven't been able to come up with much. So I'd be really interested to talk to some of those folks about that. So examples like Pixel Union and Fluorescent are both theme shops that have retired themes. Basically, they just, it's no longer available in the theme store and they're not really building out new features. And they're just basically recommending new themes. So in communicating with some theme shops, like that's kind of actually the way some of that has pivoted a little bit, is like they're pushing towards like promoting newer themes just because Shopify is also trying to promote newer themes instead of more established ones, which is interesting. The idea maybe being that more established themes don't need the push. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, that's all shopinfo.app is. And so I did a Chrome extension for that as well. And it's a lot easier to maintain and update now, mainly because the nice thing about like developing with AI is, and Rails being very established, is that it actually gives you pretty good like suggestions and feedback. And so even with my limited knowledge of Rails, being able to build stuff out, like, now it's much easier to check the whole theme store for updates on existing themes and stuff like that, instead of like manually updating stuff like I was previously. That took a long time. So it'd be a week or two in between updates. And now I'm just like, I've got some time. I'm going to go ahead and just like run this and have it check for new updates and, update. So that's really cool.
Speaking of that, go ahead.
Go ahead. No. I was, it's on Heroku. So that's why I was like, Heroku is really easy to manage and maintain. And again, the nice thing about Heroku having been around for forever as well is with AI, like, you can just be like, hey, like, this is what I need to do. Even when I'm not super familiar, I had to update the stack and I had to update the version of Ruby for the app. And that was like really easy. Like I did it like in like, less than 30 minutes probably, just because nothing broke and I got really lucky.
That's always a good feeling. Yes. Well, that's cool. Well, yeah. So all that to say, pick your poison with providers, and lessons learned over the years is when the more exotic it is, the more my hackles are raised. Hackles is another word that's commonly used.
I've never heard of hackles.
You've never used hackles raised?
No.
That you never heard that? That's a totally used phrase. It's like the hair on the back of your neck.
Is
like
it?
A dog or something.
No,
yeah.
I haven't heard that. No.
Don't know how to spell hackles. It's
Hackle.
Okay.
Okay, it's in here. It's in here. So you're on the board. You're on the board.
See, I've already forgotten the word you misused earlier because I don't even want to pollute my. No. Okay, it just sounds wrong. So yeah, stay away from exotic things. That's my philosophy.
Yeah,
because you just gotta learn the whole new thing. But you mentioned just a moment ago, this is the segue I was attempting to get out the door, that it used to take you a long time to update, but now you wrote this Chrome extension. It's all automatic now. You save so much time. You're wunderbar. One of the things that I've also been working on with Liquid Weekly is, I do the newsletter every week, and it sometimes takes a lot of time, not only to assemble the newsletter, but also, if you've not been to the liquidweekly.com homepage in a while, the wonderful Ann Taylor design packs has helped me make it actually look like it doesn't suck, because I have no design acumen. Acumen's another word. You might look that up in your thesaurus of the day.
Thesaurus.
And I'm trying to turn it into a knowledge portal for third-party Shopify development content, right? Because Shopify's got pretty good docs. I think we would all agree. No doc is perfect, but pretty good. It's got the forum. It's got their partner Slack and everything. They got a lot of good stuff. But there's so much more that's kind of out there that is what Liquid Weekly tries to surface in the newsletter. And so I'm trying to make the site be a portal for all that stuff to live. So I've got to go back, figure out how to programmatically put all those articles and things in there that I've collected over the years. But then moving forward, every week I have to create entries for the newsletter and then also entries for the podcast as blog pages, essentially blog articles in the site. That just takes a while, and I tend to mess it up, as you know from some recent experience with me trying to edit the podcast.
I know what you're talking about.
It's hard for me to be consistent sometimes, and so I am working on some code. I have a little Rails app that helps me manage the curation process, and I'm trying to add some features to be able to push out the blog post generation for those issues, so I can make it more consistent and stop doing it manually.
That's really cool. Well, I'm proud of you. And mainly I had to message Ann Thomas about when you finally were convinced to move over, and you told me I'm going to move it over to a Shopify site. And so I was like, all right, great job. You finally helped convince Karl to move over.
She sold me on it. I wasn't,
I know. I was a
like,
terrible salesman, apparently. Sorry, Shopify. I didn't do a good job.
but
We got
just
Karl
didn't
now,
seem
though.
like a good fit, and I didn't want to get locked into something. But then as we kind of talked through what we could do with it and what sort of the features I was looking for, like, okay, it makes sense. And it is, to her point, like eating your own dog food. Like even having to make this feature, it's like, well, I have to look at the GraphQL queries for blog posts now, and that would be something that would be useful to remember and do in the future. So it's good.
Yep. These are all great points. I don't know if anybody mentioned these to you before and talked to you about them as well, but that Anne's a smart gal.
This is something you're going to learn as a parent if you haven't already. There are going to be things that you tell your kids that they will ignore and won't listen to. And then someone else will tell them the same exact thing, and they'll come back to you.
Are you comparing me to, like, as your parent in this situation?
No. Just like...
And Anne is a peer?
No, it's not like that at all. I'm just saying, like, you're going to experience it. Sometimes it just takes a different voice.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's all I'm saying.
I know exactly.
And you have to sit there humbly and say, like, I've told you this 1,000 times, and you never heard
I was not humble about it at all.
No, you were.
And I just messaged away and then took this opportunity as well. So I think it's great. Liquid Weekly is on Shopify, and you went with Dawn. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
you do a lot of cool stuff with Dawn.
I left all in the hands of Anne because I trust her implicitly, and she's way more stylish than I am. The last piece I'm trying to solve, and maybe you have some clues, or dear listener, if you have some clues about this, is I've got this list of URLs. I've got titles and authors and all that sort of stuff. What I need to do is I want to go back and grab the content, not to show it on Liquid Weekly because I want it to remain with the authors. It's their stuff, but to help index it so that when you search, it'll come up and you'll get the link and be able to go out to the original article. So I'm trying to figure out how to automate that. But it's tough because not only do you have to, like, go to the page and get the content, but I'm trying to also discern, like, what is the actual article body, because I don't want everything, on the page necessarily that I'd be grabbing.
Yeah.
So I've been playing around with some crawlers, some AI crawlers and stuff, or scrapers, I guess is a better word. But they're hit or miss, and I'm sure there's a smart way of doing this. If someone just like, oh, you idiot, just do this. So if you know that answer to that, want to share it, let me know.
Yeah, the scrapers and crawlers is a really interesting whole thing, right? Like, and even in talking to some people with, like, shopinfo.app, like how I was using that as well, because that's what it does, is it checks a theme based on, we're looking for specific properties that are in just Shopify themes. And it's not perfect because you can just change the name of the theme in your settings, schema, not JSON file, right? And then in which case, like, the name value doesn't match. So, like, it's a real basic check.
So if you want to fly under the radar of Shop App, do that. Otherwise, Taylor will find you.
But the whole goal was to, like, try to showcase, like, just how customized Shopify themes can be. So I'm trying to move in that direction as far as that goes. That's helpful for me from someone who provides services on customizing themes, because I think that's a big issue that a lot of people run into, where they're like, oh, this is just it, right? Like, this is whatever you see in the demo. This is what my store has to look like. It's like, no, like, it can look like anything, but that's a lot of merchants. If you talk to them, like, I don't want my store to look like this. It's like, oh, that's not what we're picking to see. But anyways, the crawlers and bots were the things that we're here, the scrapers. Because that was what most people were just like, oh, we'll just, like, scrape and use the tool and then sell the data or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to, like, get into that. Like, that's not the purpose of it at all. Like, I don't know. There's plenty of other, like, scrapers out there and stuff too. So go use one of those. But well, we can switch gears here a little bit from talking about some of our kind of big things or side projects and those sorts of things as well.
It's good. It's good to talk about that. It's helpful. Get that off my chest. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry.
That's
just doing the best I can.
No, I'm a huge fan of. That was one of the things that I really appreciated about when you started Liquid Weekly, and I was very excited to be asked to come on the podcast. Was I love resources, and I love just, like, the idea of bringing in all of these Shopify resources that people are putting together and just making it a space where people can find out about everything. And so, very, very cool. Speaking of bringing a whole bunch of things, putting them all together in one place, Editions was announced. You didn't know where I was going with that, did you?
I did.
You were like, what's happening? Yeah. Oh, you did? I was hoping to, like, kind of, like, blindside you a little bit there.
I was like, this is so hinky what he's doing right here.
It was a great segue. You used it, yeah. Editions. It's announced the tickets aren't available yet, but May 29th, May 30th, So they bumped it up. Last year it was at the end of June. This year it's at the end of May. Kind of interesting. I don't know what's going on there. It's in Toronto again, so that's exciting.
Like they changed the date. That's what's going on there.
Well, so I was expecting it to be like around the same time, right? But they bumped it up a whole month. Interesting.
Well, you know what it
they
probably
also
is?
bumped up winter editions a whole month from January to December. Related? Don't know.
I'm just gonna guess that Harshdeep was busy, and they said if he can't make it, what are we
He's
doing?
gonna love that. It's like Harshdeep was like, I'm busy at the end of June. Could you guys just go ahead and move it? That'd be great. Thanks. Well, the benefit of this, I'm hoping, is so when we went at the end of June, because Shopify does this all around their summit too. Like this is like their annual like get together. So I'm assuming maybe they've moved this as well to this time.
One would assume.
Right, because last year, back in 2024,
way
last
back.
year, aka last week, right? Like last year. But so last year when they did this, there were a bunch of other conferences, I think, in the area at the time. And I guess like Toronto is already like kind of pricey, but like hotels were wild, like as far as like trying to find space. And so hopefully it's maybe not as wild this time. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier to find a space. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm hoping you get to go this year too, buddy. You thinking
Toby
about
not
it?
invite you to stay with him at his house?
Who? What?
Did Toby not invite you to stay with him at his house? I thought you guys really hit it off on that episode.
No, I was too busy, fumbling over my words at the time. I feel like I tell everybody this. I felt like half the time I was just still like, and you were so prepared and ready and like just like, oh yes, I've mixed in with all of these technical elites or whatever, and I'm just over here like, but no invite from Toby yet. I mean, it's still early on in the year. It's only January.
And it's tough because he gets so many robocalls these days. You could very well have dismissed his call.
It's true. I'm going to actually start going into my spam messages and in my DMs. Maybe he's under a different account. Maybe
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you're going. You're open to go. Are you going to take the family again?
No. That's so my wife and I danced around this for like 2 or 3 days, like after it like got announced, right? Or whatever. And I danced around this. I was talking to my wife about it. We're just trying to plan out like, the logistics of like bringing everybody. And she was like, well, would it just be easier for like you to just do it? I was like, yeah, I think so. I think that's what we're like. So I was really happy to let
her get there herself.
Yes. That's for those of you that haven't been married for over a decade.
Yes.
Pro tip right there.
Let them think it's their idea.
She doesn't watch the podcast, so I can talk about this. Which is sad, right? My wife doesn't even watch this. Like, what?
Well, she talks to you every day.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point. She doesn't need to hear me drone on about more Shopify dev stuff. But that was, trying to figure out. I was really fortunate that we could take the kids and they got to see Niagara Falls. We did the whole family trip. But like the whole time I was gone, I don't know if you're like this either too. Like, I'm like, even when I was at Editions, like it's kind of in the back of your mind, like, my wife is out with my kids in a city we've never been in before. And so I hope everything's okay. And like, I'm checking in every couple of hours, be like, hey, hope everything's going okay. I'm kind of feeling a little bit bad about like also being gone the whole day as well. Cause I left, before 5 a.m. cause I had to get to the conference center. I had to walk there. I had to get to the conference center early enough.
How slow do you walk?
In order to open up. It was, again, city I've never been in. I wanted to make sure I wasn't late. My timing ended up being perfect because Liam was like right there as I was walking in. So I walked in with Liam. So it looked like, I was like,
you guys are together.
Liam.
Yeah.
So,
that's cool.
I looked awesome. But so no, we had to do the freelancer breakfast and then I was out like pretty late, but like I felt bad kind of. And so this year, that's the plan. I'm going up, just me. Wife's going to stay home with the kids and, we'll do a different trip or something hopefully this year if we can to make up for the fact that they don't get to go to Canada again.
It's way better to go without the family. Not because families are terrible. It's hard to be split brain and to have fun in either scenario there.
100%. Yeah. So
are you going to drive?
That's the plan. If you don't want to carpool, if you're not going up this year, you're not going to fly or something. I mean, I'm going to take my motorcycle.
Oh, I see.
I mean, if we can both take the motorcycle, it's pretty comfy seat.
Could I just hold on? Sure.
So I do have. You've seen my bike because I rode down that time. It's it's got what's called a tour pack on the back. So it's like, you've got like armrests back there almost, man. So, you'd be fine. You don't have to.
We do like a
You
little
don't have
Dumb
to
and
do
Dumber
this
thing.
So yeah, either that or I'm also cool with carpooling if you want to do, if you're not going to fly. Some people are really all about flying. I don't like to fly. I should say I like to fly. I think being in an airplane is really cool. I just don't like dealing with airports. I hate that part.
And the people, the other passengers.
Yes, because everybody else is feeling like, hey, we're all trapped in here, right? This big metal tube that's going to go up in the sky, like we're all stuck here. Like everybody's feeling it. So if it's like less, especially, I say if it's with my kids, if it's less than 10 hours, I'm going to drive it. If it's me, I'll drive very far before I would get to the point. Like it'd have to be further than 24 hours for me not to drive it, if I was by myself, kind of type thing. So, and flight's expensive.
I don't know. I mean, and I flew to Editions in 2019, the last really good one that they had.
You mean Unite? It's not.
Oh, I'm
Editions,
sorry, Unite. Yeah, Unite.
Yeah,
sorry.
Get out of here. You can't even say the name.
I pulled the hinky there. Sorry.
That's not how you use it.
It's not a real word. I flew, and it was like $600 from Columbus to Toronto.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Well, if you do end up flying, you should look into Cleveland too, because I don't know why.
If I'm driving to Cleveland, I might as well just drive to Toronto.
Those are not even close to the same, my dude.
It's just across the lake.
You can't. What? But that's what I'm saying is like the flights are so much cheaper anywhere out of Cleveland than Columbus. That would be really cool, actually.
And then we can live on the boat. It would save money.
There you go.
We should look into that.
Like a sailboat,
Let's 3D print a boat. That we sail.
I knew I should have got one at Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale.
Did you get one?
No, I wanted to. I just couldn't. It just still felt like a fun purchase, and then I felt bad spending that much money on one. I don't know why my camera's not adjusting right now. That's weird.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, so Shopify Editions. Sorry.
Be there, be
guys.
square.
Yeah.
Carl's gonna come.
Really feeling it this year.
We're gonna get him. Okay.
I love traveling. It really is the joy of my life. Sleeping in a weird bed, around weird people, eating weird food. Yeah. It's great.
We're going to try to see maybe if we can get like a big Airbnb with SDA people or something.
We're going to have a catamaran. We don't need an Airbnb. What is? Let's get a flotilla of SDA people. Let's take over the harbor. It'll be amazing.
It would be amazing. I'm loving I love this energy. I love where this is going. This is... Anyway, speaking of other places you should be going.
Yeah.
That segue, man. I'm on fire with the segues today. Shopify developer community. So just in the past week, Carl, we were just talking on before the call. I've had like 3 or 4 devs just in the past week asking me, hey, like, what was that Shopify dev community again? So, which I felt like this was old news by now.
How dare they DM you directly, too?
How dare they? What? But this is where you should be. If you're a Shopify dev, you're a Shopify partner, and you're trying to ask technical related questions and those sorts of things, go ahead and join the Shopify developer community. It's great. There's a lot of Shopify staff that are in here answering, responding to stuff, and those sorts of things. Just in general, some of the stuff that we used to do from the standpoint of, getting stuff in the Shopify partner Slack. I think you're going to get a lot better response now through the developer community. And there's also the ability to search a lot better through there. You're not going to get the random DMs for someone asking to hire them.
That's the part I like the most.
Since
makes you feel important.
Yeah, right. That's like, darn, why would I want to do that? So definitely check that out. It's, I've found it very helpful so far as well. Just even reading some other people's like questions and responses and those sorts of things. There's some really, really smart people spending time in there. So, definitely check that out.
I'm not in there, but that explains that.
You're not in there yet?
Well, no, I have a name in there. I made it a count. I just haven't
have a name.
I haven't had a chance to contribute yet.
Karl.
I don't want to dumb it down for everybody else, but I'll get there.
You'll get there. It's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. We talked a little bit about, so the Shopify dev community definitely be in there. There's a couple of things that we had talked about as far as like whether we should, talk about like reflecting back at all. Maybe we did that already to some degree. I don't know.
I don't want to reflect. You got anything you want to reflect on? 2024, it's over.
I don't know. I feel I feel like, yeah, it's over. Like we talked about, I'm much better about like just looking ahead. So I'm happy with that. One of the things that I saw a lot of when people were asking for Shopify dev content, I thought was really interesting. It seems to be much more related to Shopify app dev. Like a lot of people feel like pretty comfortable in themes and these sorts of things, or maybe they don't want to get into services, they want to get into building products. And
So
so
this an
Shopify app
SDA you
dev.
did this poll? When you say
No, I did
people,
this on Twitter, like with
oh,
when we were trying to like get some information,
that's still
just
a
like
thing?
real general. What?
Twitter's still a thing?
X, whatever. Yeah, I'm calling it Twitter. I'll continue to call it Twitter. Although like there's a whole line that I'm not going to go on about or whatever there. So
Good.
I'm mainly calling it Twitter just because it was Twitter and still is Twitter. But yeah, good, bad, and indifferent. Lots of things. So Twitter, if you're wanting to look forward and ahead, the great Gil Greenberg, works at
Is that what
Shopify
it goes
now.
by?
I call him the Great Gil. So that's the maybe we could talk him into coming on sometime. But he posted this post on Twitter. So we're talking about like Shopify app dev. He posted this thing where it's just like he's like I get people asking me questions all the time, right, about app dev and all this other stuff. And now that I'm doing this, he built checkout blocks, spent a ton of time on this, kind of became the authority on checkout extensibility before it was really a thing. And then Shopify acquired his app, and he now works at Shopify. And so this is obviously super, super smart guy, really knows what he's doing. Everybody who's in Shopify app dev knows who Gil is, right? And so he did this post where he was like, hey, like this is kind of like what you should be looking at. And some of this kind of like is consistent with other people that we've had come on that have talked about stuff, like Lee Barnes. We had him on. He works at Shopify now. And he had talked about, you should be looking at stuff in the changelog. Adam, also from Wrapped, he also was just like talking about this as well previously. Famously, he's not really photographed all that much, so I was like, I don't know, but go into that. Anyways, but he had talked a lot about this as well, like checking the change logs, checking editions, like these updates from Shopify. Look around to see like the things that they're doing, and this gives you a really good idea on the spaces you should be building into.
Yeah.
And so just really quick to highlight, and we'll link this up in the show notes. Like Gil posted this, I dropped it in. I don't know if you read this yet or not, but he talked about places that people should be looking to build is shop minis. And if you don't know what shop minis are, it's basically a way for you to build into Shopify's shop app. So there's a lot more integrations directly within the shop app now. There's a lot more buy-in. I personally prefer like paying through Shop Pay anytime I can. And the app is really nice because it has this whole like unified cart experience. It's really, really cool. So definitely check that out. I did ask, I thought it was like a really closed beta. It's been in like an early release kind of type invite only thing for a while. But supposedly that's a little bit more open now. So definitely check that out. Customer accounts and B2B. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. New customer accounts are just like customer accounts now. We talked to Patrick about this a little bit ago. And just like personalizing the shopping experience through customer accounts. This feels like a no-brainer, and I'm really surprised that this wasn't like more of a thing anyways. I think the tough part has been getting people to log in, right?
Yeah.
That's always the toughest part. But now, since everything's kind of like being more unified, this is going to be like way, way easier to provide more customer-specific information. And so that would be a good one to check out as well. And then there's kind of like these two different spaces where he's talking about maybe not like building stuff in here, but things you should be building with. Custom content, so that's meta fields and meta objects. We talked about that extensively. Like Shopify talks a lot about this is where we want you to build stuff. This is where we want you to put stuff. Even like the benefits of, we had Andrea on as well. And he talked about how that's one of the benefits, right, of working with Shopify functions, and they're working with these clients. It's like, I don't own any of that data. Like it's all on your store. And so you don't have to jump through all these hoops where other stores are concerned about like how you're storing data, and they have to be really concerned about that. It's just like, nope, it all lives with you. I don't keep any of this stuff. And so using custom content, the content lives with that store. And so you're not having to like do that yourself. So real big stuff from the privacy side things also kind of harkens back a little bit to the customer accounts. And then Shopify Flow, just like seeing it as an integration partner and talking to more app devs who are looking at this and replacing different things with stuff that they can do in Flow. So just definitely good thing to check out. We'll link up Gil's post here as well. I think it's pretty insightful, and obviously, Gil's a really smart guy, knows what he's doing. So if he's making recommendations here, I'd be paying attention.
Sounds great.
Yeah, for sure.
Great, Gil. So, anyway, we'd love to have you on, Gil, if you're watching this, which secretly, maybe you are.
Secretly?
Maybe.
he's secretly? He doesn't want
Not
people to
afraid to
know that
admit
he's
it?
actually watching it? Don't tell anybody I listen to Liquid Weekly podcast.
Well,
This
you
is
got a
where he
reputation.
gets all of his good information.
That's right. I like to think people come here for street cred, but maybe not.
Right? We're gonna start giving out cool badges or shirts or something.
Yeah.
I was on Liquid Weekly.
Well, I think Prakar is probably getting near the end of his workout, so we should probably wrap this up. Do you have anything else you want to share around there? Should we transition to our picks of the week?
No, let's transition to picks because Changelog. There's just a ton of stuff in the Changelog that dropped. I don't know if you
Over
saw
Christmas?
That's not Christmas, like New Year's, like January 1.
They're busy. They're
Obviously,
busy
the
over there.
biggest thing that went into effect that you just need to check the changelog, but like we've started that big transition of like you can't use the REST product API now for new public apps. Like you just won't get approved. So everything's going GraphQL, baby.
Whether you like it or not.
Embrace it.
Embrace it. Yes. Love the pain. All right. So my pick of the week, I'll go first. Actually, I have two. One I haven't read this yet, but this is on Bill Gates' reading list. I'm laughing because I don't know why I ran into that, but it's called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleiman, and I like tongue-in-cheek sort of things, so I like some of these call-outs on the book. A fascinating, well-written, and important book. I mean, with a thing like that, how could you not pick it up and look at them?
It checks
What
all
else
the
are you looking for?
boxes.
Yeah, it does. So I think I got the first one from the library to get it. It's nice and crisp. So I'm going to read this. Looks interesting. I'll be educated. So The Coming Wave, check that out. And be smart. Don't deny. And then the other thing I have on here is a show called The Skeleton Crew, which you're probably all familiar with, but I kept seeing it pop up on Apple TV, and I did not want to look at it because I was so upset with how Disney has treated the other Star Wars franchises that they messed up. Well, not all of them, but some of them. I think we know which ones. Anyway, it kept coming up, so I said, fine, I'll look at it. And I actually enjoyed it. I watched the first episode. I'm into the second one now. And, it's certainly geared more towards a younger audience in terms of the main characters are a group of kids, but I enjoy that. Reminds me a little bit of Stranger Things kind of vibe, like a bunch of kids having an adventure sort of thing, maybe Goonies.
Nice.
See if it's something my kids might find interesting too. So, Skeleton Crew on Disney.
That's awesome. Jude Law. That's
Does not
cool.
completely
Big
suck.
names.
At least not yet.
That's yeah. I'd say I like Jude Law as an actor. He's got some good. Jaleel White, Urkel's in this. What?
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Yeah,
I just googled it. I haven't seen this one yet. I did take you up on
Silo.
What was Silo was great. I like binge watched that over like the week of Christmas. Like just cranked it out. It was which the episodes are like an hour long.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
I watched
what
all
better way to
2
celebrate
seasons.
Christmas with some dystopian binge watching?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, this is not one I did not watch it with my wife. She's more like the happy, funny kind of type comedies
Hallmark
kind
channel
of things.
sort of thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, she's entering her Hallmark Channel era. Like
She better not listen to this podcast either. You're in so much trouble.
yeah, I'm in trouble. But anyways, yeah, Karl's recommendations are great. What was Silo, and then you also recommended what was the other Apple TV show that was really good? that you
Severance?
recommended? Severance, yes, that was good. They've got a new season coming out.
I
This
know.
month, I think. So far, you're 2 for 2 on your show recommendations that I've actually followed up on. So I don't know if you had other show. I don't know if I've done some of the movie recommendations. I think I've hit the show recommendations at least. But
Yeah. Well, the movie ones really slap, so you better watch those.
I'll have
As they
to
say.
find them. You did use that, right? I
Yeah,
think
see?
anyways. I don't know.
I think that's even old now.
Sometimes when I spend time, it probably is old. Anytime I spend time around Slay, I think is the new big one.
yeah.
My nephews and nieces, like I have to ask them every day. I'm like, what did you just say? Like, I don't even understand what's happening right now. I feel so old. Like, I'm 36, man. Like,
I don't remember that happening when we were growing up with parents. I don't remember them ever wondering what we were talking about, but I'm sure they did.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure. Yeah, they were probably just trying to play it cool.
How about you? You got any picks?
Yeah, my pick of the week is going to be a Peanuts dishwasher magnet. So it doesn't have to be Peanuts. But
Peanuts the cartoon, or like Peanut the nut?
Yeah, Peanuts like the cartoon. So like Snoopy, and Charlie Brown and those sorts of things or what have you. So there's a dishwasher magnet. We have a Christmas tradition of going to the Cracker Barrel with my kids. I don't go to the Cracker Barrel any other time of the year. I do not like it, but it's just like a thing. Like they're open Christmas Eve, and it's like this homey thing. They've got a big fireplace.
You're the reason they're open on Christmas Eve, Taylor.
Probably. I don't know. It's always packed, man. So it's not just me. All right. So, but they also have this like big ginormous gift shop, right? Like you have to walk through it to get to the restaurant or whatever portion of the place. And so, anyways, you get done, and then your kids come out, and then they spend the rest of the time trying to convince you to buy them all this stuff, right?
For sure.
Happens every year. And so kids come in their pajamas. It's a whole thing. And so this year, my kids are getting older, so we've been giving them more chores and those sorts of things, because that's my goal, right? Like eventually I'm just not going to have to do anything at home. Yeah. So one of the things is, what's that?
Then they grow up and leave. So then
then they grow up and leave, and then you have to like do stuff again. But it's only two of you then at that point. So like you're like the workload just plummets. And so, anyways, my 5-year-old son is always asking, like, is the dishwasher clean or dirty when I have to load the dishes into the dishwasher? And so now this dishwasher magnet on one side says clean, other side says dirty. He cannot read yet. He's still learning. Yeah, I know, right? Like this is all this way. This is a big buildup. And so there's a story behind everything, Karl. Like this is why it's an important pick of the week. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but like he can see on the picture, like based on that, like, oh, this is like, Snoopy's lying down or he's standing up, like flying his airplane, whether or not it's clean or dirty. So big fan.
I think in the amount of time it took for you to tell that story, you could have taught him to read.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, either way, he won't open the dishwasher to look to see whether it's clean or dirty. And for whatever reason, he can't get that. But like now that this is here, it's like, oh, and now clean and dirty are just sight words that he recognizes. So it works out. Help your kid to read with dishwasher magnets.
I think that's a great thing you've done there. I have a problem with those kind of magnets, though, because I feel like this is like a typical almost front-end development issue, right? Like the state of the magnet is different from the state of the dishwasher. They're not reflective. And so you could change the state of the magnet, and it doesn't determine whether the dishwasher is actually clean or not. And so if it gets out of sync, what do you do? And then you're like, is this really clean? And once you so doubt that it no longer has any meaning whatsoever, it just gets ignored. So good luck maintaining state between those two things.
It's going to happen. At least it has for the first week here.
If anyone could do it, it's you and your family. I believe in you, Taylor.
Thank you. I appreciate the encouragement, Karl.
Karl, are you done yet? Because we really need to end this episode.
We've been trying. I had to tell this lengthy story about buying a dishwasher magnet from the Cracker Barrel, man.
I was trying to give him a solid hour to get that workout in. So I think we made it. We have achieved what he was asking us for. So if you want us to do a custom episode for you, for your workout or whatever else it is you do while you listen to this episode, let us know. And I'll be happy to make that happen for you.
Perfect.
So, awesome. Well, Taylor, it's been a real treat. Thanks for hanging out with me. And we'll see you soon.
All right. See you, Karl.
I have a better ending thing than see you soon.
That works.
All right. See you on the boat. Bye, everyone.